Hey everyone, welcome to the Wick Media podcast. Today we have singer-songwriter Neil Murray with us. Nice to see you, Neil.
Good to be here, Daniel.
Now, there's no other non-Indigenous singer-songwriter in Australia that uses Indigenous language like you do. Why do you think that is, Neil?
You sure that's true?
Yeah.
There must be somebody.
Well, Paul Kelly.
When did he use language?
Yeah, I know the song, I should have checked up on that.
I think there's been probably others, but but yeah, because basically because I was in the Warumpi band, we were doing some songs in language, and because one of the jobs I had at Papunya was working in a bilingual education program, which was teaching kids to read in their own language first, at least to get the concept of reading before going on to oral English, which I still think is the best way to teach reading. You teach it to kids in their mother tongue.
Absolutely.
And I got quite proficient at writing the language down. I had a really good teaching assistant, a woman by the name of Narrabri Nakamura,
Right.
who taught me all the language I know, and I understood her the best. And I started to just really appreciate the window that language affords. It gives you a window into the culture, into the world view. And I started to realise that the languages of this continent it's the intellectual treasure of the continent. The languages carry all that. And just got an appreciation for how they arose from different countries and how they reflect that country and the culture of the people in it.
Sure, that's right. And so what language was it that you learned first?
Literature. It's called literature.
Mm.
It's very similar to Pidginjara or Pinibi. It's more Pinibi literature. There's a few different preferences, pronouns. Pidginjara mob often use picture as the verb to go, whereas literature uses anani, going. But if you can understand one of those Western Desert languages, you can pretty much get by with between Port Augusta and up towards Broome, Rio de Alice, pretty much. Warlpiri's very different, but there's some similarities. But I probably wouldn't describe myself as fluent. I was certainly like kids' ability. I could work out what was going on, and I could make reasonable responses and explain simple things, what I wanted to do. I would have trouble explaining the solar system, but it should be possible. If you're fluent in any language, you should be able to explain a concept like that.
Absolutely. That's right. And that's why it's so important that we keep those languages as strong as we can.
Oh yeah, there's language retrieval going on everywhere. I mean, part of my journey was, I wanted to be with Aboriginal people, learn from Aboriginal people because they know this land the best, and I saw that they really belonged. They really come from this land, and I wanted to share in that. I wanted to deepen my own sense of belonging. I felt that they could show me, and they did. And part of that journey was then looking back at the country where I was born and raised, which is Djapurong country, Western Victoria. And of course, everything's been lost down there in a big way. In terms of much of southeastern Australia was brutally dispossessed in the mid-1800s, and there's much devastation of people and land and culture. But nevertheless, I took it on myself at the prompting of people like Sami Butcher telling me, that's your country, you should go there, sit down there, So I did. I came back and so I started to research the language. I had a local elder, Uncle Ted Lovett, just casually standing next to me on the shore of Lake Bollock one day, and he just remarked, seemingly into the air, but in my earshot, "I'd like to hear a song in Djapurong." I said, "So would I." And he looked at me and he said, "Go on then." So that was the mission. It took me a couple of years. There's very little records of Djapurong. There's probably half a dozen foolscap pages. There's some word lists. A lot of grammatical information is missing.
Yep.
But we can infer by what's left of neighbouring languages a lot. And then I had Professor Barry Blake and another linguist, Julie Reid, give me a bit of a hand.
Yep.
Professor Barry Blake's, he was expert on Western Kulin languages, which is part of it. So I managed to come up with a song, which I recorded.
Wow.
It's called Malamie long ago. Not sure if it's totally correct, but it's close enough, and I feel that, you know, I just wanted to make honour the old people somehow. And
Sure.
then again, you find that down in South-Western Australia, people are very predictive of what they have still, you know, remains, or various language groups are involved in researching and retrieving they say they're buried. They're not lost, they're just buried.
Yeah.
So sometimes out of my own area, you got to sort of step warily, because best intentions can be misconstrued. I did actually try and write a song in a neighbouring language, and I was told fairly forthrightly that to butt out.
Wow.
So all right,
Wow.
even though I was just going to gift it to people to use as a choir.
That's how strong the possession is.
Yeah, they just felt that I was going to exploit it somehow, and that wasn't my intention.
Yeah.
And I even had a linguist, or an undergraduate linguist, who had ancestry of that language group.
Yeah.
He just said, you're going to have to take it to the board. There's a language board that they decide. People often want to use words for businesses and stuff, and they decide whether it's appropriate or not.
Yeah, yeah.
So I just had to respect that, although I did felt I was misunderstood and they didn't know me.
Yeah.
So that's the reality in South and Eastern Australia, but in the northern parts of the country, if you learn anyone's language, they put you on a pedestal.
Absolutely.
And they tell everyone, don't talk English to him. He's really Anongo. Talk literature, you know?
Yep. And that's great.
Because
that's how you learn.
Yeah, and
Excuse me.
it's a respect, because they've had to learn English, and they picked up English quicker than any Europeans picked up their language.
Yeah, correct.
So to go the other way is a mark of real respect.
Yeah.
And people, it changes your relationship.
Yeah.
People see you differently. You're not just a tourist on the surface. You're someone that's willing to listen and learn.
Yeah.
And really be with people.
Yeah. That's a really special place to be, hey?
Yeah, I don't think I'm telling you anything you don't know.
Well, I've experienced a similar life up in the Cape, learning Wicmulcan, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's probably only about 5 outsiders who speak Wicmulcan who've even made an effort.
Wow.
It's incredible, isn't it? It's a beautiful language. It's so beautiful to hear.
They all are, especially
They sure are. Yeah.
to utter them or to hear them spoken in the language they come from. They resonate powerfully. Yeah. That's why
a good way to put it.
if we can restore the original names for places, and I think that's fantastic. Because they all had names, you know, and these imposed names by the colonists are an intrusion, and they're a distraction. And they, we need to really, they're beautiful names, you know, we need to put them, get them back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something we spoke about in the last podcast. Gimoy is the traditional name for Cairns.
Gimoy.
Gimoy, yeah. It's a tribe too. I already found that out last time I did a discussion like this, so it's much to learn. So can we just change the subject a little bit now? In 2009, you produced the album Tungu.
Jungle.
Jungle.
Jungle means
Thank
all
you.
in one joined together. That's a literature word, jungle.
With Sami Butcher, an ex-member from Rumpy. How did you get started on that project?
Well, Sami was the first person. Well, he was the one that came to me. I'd only been in Papunya for a week in 1980, and he must have heard, there's this new white fella, he's got a guitar.
Yeah.
So he come around to see me and knocked on the door, and he was a cool-looking cat even then, you know, handsome young bloke.
Yep.
He said, you got a guitar? I said, yeah. He said, show me. So I showed him the guitar, and boy, could he play. Just effortless. Brilliant natural talent. I said, we've got a jam, you know.
Yep.
So we started playing, jamming together, and then young fellas, his brother turned up with an upturned flower drum with a couple of twigs and just started keeping the beat, you know.
Yeah.
And fellas sit-down money, dole money, they chucked in money, we got a bit of gear, you know. Started playing covers at first, you know.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, Sami's got a wonderful, generous, inclusive spirit, you know. So he kind of drew me in, you know, wanted me to, he always shares everything, you know, people to be involved, you know.
Yep.
So anyway, without going further history of the Warrambie Band, but it was always him. Me and him kind of coming together created this thing. And
Sure.
it was a wonderful energy playing with him. It was just exciting. And
Yeah.
so after the Warrambie Band was done and dusted, like we officially retired in 2000, but we did do a couple of gigs after that. We played the Dreaming Festival in 2006, and that was the last time we ever played with the lead singer, because
Yeah.
I noticed then that he was struggling. He wasn't well then.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, of course,
Mr. Warrambie?
yeah, he passed away the following year, 2007.
Yeah.
So any prospect of doing another Warrambie Band project disappeared with him, really.
Sure.
But Sammy was still there, and I thought I'd just love to go out and see him and see if we could. He was always a great one to give me ideas, spark ideas, whether from
Right.
jamming or from a story he told me.
Yeah.
You know, I just would listen. He just had a way of telling a story or saying something. So ostensibly we were doing a bit of mentoring, but got a little bit of funding from the NT Arts or something, and went out there to sit down for a few days, and he was very busy. Then he was he doesn't drink or smoke, and so he's a sought after community leader, and
Yep.
there's always meetings, you know.
Yeah.
And he was here, there, and everywhere like a blowfly. But he'd sort of come around in the morning and tell me a yarn, or maybe pluck a few chords, you know. I remember this one song, Fine Open Country, which is the opening track of the album.
Right.
He just hit the C chord and he started picking, and he just had the first line. He said, "I was standing alone in Northern Borough, watching the sun go down," and that's all he had. And he took off. And so I just had that.
Wow.
And by the time he come back in the afternoon, I had this song.
Yeah.
I said, "What do you think of this?" And he goes,
Incredible.
"Number one," you know. So that I just love the way he could spark me. And that first trip out, they hadn't been out there for decades, you know, more. And I was there for 4 or 5 days, and I couldn't believe it. I just had songs coming out of me everywhere, you know, all from his little ideas, sparks, you know. It's like he'd give me a spark and I'd have a little fire going by the time he came back in the afternoon or something, you know.
Yes.
And I thought, geez, what can we do with these songs? I think I come out again the following year and got a few more, and I said we should try and record them. I was kind of, I was wanting to do something to help him too, because he was kind of musically in the wilderness. Earlier on, he'd done his own solo record, guitar instrumentals.
Okay. I didn't know about that one.
Yeah, I think it's called Desert Surf Guitar.
Right.
That was done
Cool.
probably in the 90s.
Yep.
But he'd been heavily involved with mentoring his sons and nephews band, the Chuppy Band,
Right.
which was a desert reggae band.
Yep.
And they were very good.
Yes.
And
Some
they
of them
got
are
well known, yeah.
really good.
Yeah, and I don't know, I've always felt a lot of indebtedness to Sammy somehow. He's got me out of some sticky situations at times, and I just wanted to do something with him and that I felt would be good. So I got talking to Jim Magini, who's been a long time supporter of my music.
Yep.
And he expressed enthusiasm and wanting to get involved and help, you know.
Yep.
So we started a crowdfunding campaign to get some money,
Fantastic.
trying to look at recording. And
Wow.
one thing led to another. We had the Mixmasters studio, Mick Wordley's studio in Adelaide Hills, booked.
Yep.
Sammy was supposed to come down, and me and Jim were driving across from Victoria. And last minute, Sammy said, "I can't come at Papunya Sports weekend or something." I said, "Oh God, what a blow, you know." But then I thought, you know, we'll keep going. Me and you, Jim, we'll just do some beds for him,
Yep.
and then get him on after.
Yep.
So we did that. We did the basic beds for the tracks, and but in that, shortly after that, he had the first of 3 strokes.
Oh no.
Was in hospital, and it was disastrous, and it impaired his right hand.
Yep.
And I thought, oh dear, was it all lost? You know, I sort of thought, oh, we're not going to be able to do this now.
Yeah.
But Jeff McLaughlin in Tennant Creek knew Sammy well and had some studio gear, and he got him there and managed to get a bit of him on guitar. He was playing one-handed virtually, hammering on.
Yeah.
He still had the musicality, and he got some recordings done of him. Then Jim and I went up to Alice, and we got him in the studio there, Bill Davis' studio, and
Yep.
We managed to get some more of him. We just set him up so that he could play with the guitar on his lap, and sort of almost like playing a piano. He was like this, and he could hit it a bit with his right hand, but he couldn't coordinate it very well.
Yeah.
But we got enough stuff there that, and we also got his vocals on a few tracks too, which was a coup, because he never saw himself as a singer.
Yep.
And then we got his niece to sing on a few tracks. She's got a beautiful voice, Crystal.
Yep.
And Jim took it all back to his studio in Brookvale in Sydney, and he spent hours editing and compiling and whatnot.
Sure.
Got it together, and we got a bit. We had some wonderful people who donated some funds so that we could get it mixed properly and mastered.
Yeah.
So we ended up with the album Jungle, which is, it's got a pretty warm, sweet sounding record, really.
Yeah. I've had a listen to Waiting for Sami.
Yeah.
And I said to you earlier when we were talking, it made me laugh when I heard it for the first time.
Yeah.
But you said it was a serious song. Yeah.
Oh yeah, but I often remember waiting. We're often waiting for Sammy, because he's 1 minute he's there and then he's not, or he said he's coming but then he's not. You know what it's like, and in a way there's a bit of sadness in that song for me though. I don't know, but when he had the first strokes and was in hospital, I was in Broome that time. We were really concerned. We didn't know what was going on, so I actually played that song live in Broome on the evening that I heard that he'd had the strokes.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and the first time I got the idea and I played it to him, I said, "Oh, I like that song, Waiting for Sammy." He really liked it. I think he liked the fact that his name
was in it. That's beautiful, mate. Yeah. Okay. In 2005, you're involved in the Lake Bollock Eel Festival. Have I said that correctly?
Yes, you have.
And it was set up as a contemporary celebration upon Indigenous traditions. There's a lot to talk about. Can you give us a little bit of a rundown on how it got started, please?
Sure. Well, part of my return to my own country was to try and make connection with people I didn't know about who are descendants from the area that survived, and they're all around the Framlingham area. I can remember being at high school in Lake Bollock in the 70s, and I'm thinking back now, there was a handful of kids who were obviously of Indigenous descent, but nobody said anything about it then.
Yeah.
Nothing. Except for one guy in Form 4, one day he said to me, just conspiratorially, I kind of whispered, he said, "Hey." I said, "What?" He said, "I've got a black fella in me." I said, "Have you now? That's great,
Wow.
That was the only guy who said it. But I started to realise on my travels, because I've asked various Aboriginal people, because they ask you where you're from and stuff.
Yeah.
As early as 1979, when I was teaching at Robinvale on the Murray River there, near Mildura, I met a Wiradjuri man who asked me where I was from, and I said, I didn't know any blackfellas from my own area. He said, "You want to go see Uncle Banjo?
Yep.
He'll sort you out, So I'd heard of his name, as Uncle Banjo,
Yep.
And when I first heard about Archie Roach, that was another revelation, hearing about him. And I said, how come I didn't know him? Well, I didn't, because he'd been taken away.
Yep.
But I vaguely remember hearing about Framlingham. It was about 3/4 of an hour drive south of Lake Bollock, and it had been a mission or reserve established in 1865, and remnants, the people who had survived the frontier wars, were all pretty much gathered there. Either gathered there or at Lake Condah further to west. And any descendants of Djapurong people or Karairong people from my own area would have ended up there.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Archie one time and said, if there's ever a gig down country, down that way, I'd love to. He said, I think they're going to do something. They're going to have a back tea. So in 1993 they did. They had a concert in Warrnambool.
Right.
So this was my opportunity to meet Uncle Banjo.
Yeah.
And I rang him up, and said, my name's Neil Murray, I'd like to come out and have a yarn. He said, yeah, no worries, bud, come out the road, Wangoom Road, blah, blah, blah. And finally got to meet him, and it was revelatory because he just seemed to accept me, even though I'm a white fella. He accepted that my English is genuine, and I really wanted to know what happened to people in that area. I was really... I had a lot of anguish about it, because I suspected, terrible things happened, and they did. You know?
Yeah, they did.
But he just took me to the local cemetery and showed me where all the old people were buried in unmarked graves. You could just see the gentle undulating on the ground, and
Yep.
somehow all my questions just went out of me, kind of purged me somehow. And
Wow.
I only knew him for 7 years before he passed, but I'd often go to his place and just sit, take him a bit of tucker or something, and he'd just sit around and he'd just tell yarns, and I'd just listen to these yarns he told, you know. And they always had a teaching element to them.
Sure.
You know, and so he became the elder I'd yearned for in my own area.
Wow.
You know.
Wow.
And coupled with that, after that, in 1995, I managed to move it back out to Lake Bollock, which was the nearest town from where I was raised on a farm, my grandfather's farm.
Yep.
Soldier settlement block. It was actually my great-grandfather's soldier settlement block from the First World War.
Okay.
And of course, you know, I was to learn that Indigenous returned servicemen never got offered a block, you know.
That's
and
right.
even my parents didn't know that was going on, and they were horrified to hear that. You know, any decent person would be. That's an injustice.
Absolutely,
you know?
it is.
So I think a lot of those things were going on, and the mainstream population was in the dark about it, really.
Yeah, that's right.
So there's a few families down that way are still pursuing compensation cases to this day because
Wow.
of not getting a block of land that
Wow.
they were owed from being, you know,
Servicemen.
serving in the armed forces overseas
Yeah, yeah.
in those wars, First World War, Second World War, whatever. But,
Yeah.
anyway, all that aside, I still had a deep yearning to try and connect with people, and I just had this. The absence of people from the country really haunted me, and I wanted to. What can we do about that? I had this idea of walking in the land, walking with people back through the ancestral country that they'd been removed from. So I floated this idea with Uncle Banjo's family, because he'd been passed on by then, and they were all supportive that we're going to walk from the mouth of the Hopkins River and follow the river upstream and then up the creek to Lake Bollock, the way young eels would travel to get to the inland lakes.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing about Lake Bollock in pre-colonial times, it was a site of a gathering that happened every year after the autumn rains.
Yep.
The lake would overflow, and that's when the eels would be trying to migrate, get to the sea.
Yes.
And that's when the local clan that had jurisdiction over it everyone would be invited in. You'd have up to 1,000 people camped there for several weeks.
Yeah.
Doing all the business of the day.
Having big eel feasts.
Yeah. All the families could put a trap in right down the outlet, and everybody could get a feed. And it was even now, kuyang or punyat, as the language names for it, is still the most favoured fish for people that way. It's very nutritious, and they're easy to get.
Yep.
And they used all this hydrology and stuff. I mean, Budge Bim's down there. They've got all that going now as a tourist attraction now.
Yep.
So anyway, we organised this walk, and I remember starting there, and we had Uncle Banjo's son and daughter involved, and some of his grandsons and that. And we took 8 days, but we walked all the way up to Lake Bollock as if we were travelling overland going to the gathering. And I just envisaged having a little campfire on the beach and having a sing-song.
Yep.
But by this stage, there was like-minded people in the district, non-Indigenous people, but they liked the idea of having a proper festival, you know, with a marquee, you know.
Yes.
So that's what happened.
Stage.
And we had like 1,000 people turn up to the first one, and
Wow.
all these artists played, and we had dancing and stuff. The first time there'd been, you know, any kind of corroboree there, probably 150, 200 years or something. But
Wow. Gives me goosebumps thinking about
so
that, bro.
it was important to have a festival inspired by gatherings from pre-colonial times, because you need to keep those links, those deep connections, you know.
Absolutely.
Something felt right about it. And the only other one I've heard of in Australia that's similarly inspired is the Bunya dreaming thing.
Yep.
That happens in Gubbi Gubbi country, in the sunny coast, because they used to have gatherings for the Bunya nuts, you know.
That's right.
And I've spoken to Beverly Hand about it, and they've had revived that again too. And they don't have it every year though, but
Sure.
and we only have the Eel Festival now every 2 years anyway.
Sure. It's a lot.
So these activities were profoundly meaningful for me, and it seemed to validate my return to my own country, you know.
Absolutely.
So,
Wow.
yeah, and we did walks every year for quite a while along various stream systems in the area. quietly we were walking through a lot of damaged land from industrialised farming, but we still found a lot of things, a lot of evidence, Indigenous occupation, scar trees, all the rest of it, stone, fish traps and things.
Yep.
And we just felt everyone was inspired by it, and we just had a small group up to 16, no more than 18 people, and there's usually 2 or 3 Indigenous people walking with us as well. But we had just a lot of other like-minded people of all walks of life who wanted to just come and just the act of walking and in country, and then we had a couple of support vehicles taking away gear, food and everything.
Yep.
And just like getting into the land and walking it and not like a bushwalk, stomping around, oh look at that great view, but a different kind of walking. We're actually following ancient pathways, because all those stream systems were like highways, people walking up and down.
Yep.
They were often borders between clans and stuff, and
sure.
And we just felt, I just felt deeply moved. And I got a couple of songs out of those activities, but it was an attempt to really try and connect in a deeper way to the land.
Yeah.
And we got blessed. Uncle Banjo, not Uncle Banjo, Uncle Ted Lovett used to send us off with a blessing and welcome to country. And
wow, that's powerful.
And we walked downstream from the mountains where the Fiery Creek rose, and all the way to Lake Bollock. We did that a couple of times.
Yep.
We've done the Wannon River. We did the Mount Emu Creek.
Yep.
We did the Hopkins River over 2 or 3 different years, doing different sections. And
yeah, it's really powerful when you have the elders with you.
Yes.
And
you actually dwell. You got to learn to listen and dwell in a place.
Yeah.
You
do.
And it's really about taking notice.
Yeah.
And it's the same principle in a way. I mean, even when I told Sammy, well, all the language and law's been lost in my area, he sort of said, oh, you can pick that language up. I thought, shit, can I? I don't know how. But
yeah,
the premise is you go and sit down in country and you listen and observe, and the land will teach you.
That's it.
That's how everyone
simple
did
as
it.
that, isn't it?
Yeah,
really?
but
it is as simple as that.
It's not easy. You have to spend a lot of time,
That's
years.
right. Yeah,
and that's why the deep knowledge that Indigenous people hold from generations and generations of, very intimate engagement with their land and their environment is just so deep and precious,
It sure is.
And those are the things that need to be preserved at all costs. Every time an old person dies, some used to say, there's a library gone.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. And it takes me back to going for the first time up the Cape and going out on country, and the elders would put smell on you up there. And for the people listening who don't know, the smell, they believe, is to let the spirits know that you're coming on country. So they'll put smell onto the outsiders so the spirits know who are there. And for me to go through that, it's such a beautiful experience.
Well,
it really is.
To get those kind of blessings from traditional owners is the proper way to enter someone else's country.
Yeah, that's right.
That's why I don't really go unaccompanied to tourist sites or things like that. I have been, but I always feel a bit awkward because I'd rather be with local TOs who can actually show me where to be, where to stand. Don't go that way, stay here, blah blah blah, or we'll take you there. Or that is the proper way to really to go anywhere into somebody's home, So
yes,
if you've had that, that's the proper way to enter. Yeah, I mean. I used to use this analogy. I mean, the whole country was somebody's home. There was multiple homes, multiple nations. And if you barge in and help yourself to the cupboards and ransack everything, it creates bad blood. But if you go up and knock on the door respectfully, wait, someone comes out, you say, oh, look, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, can you help me? They're going to help you,
Yeah, every time.
Because you show that respect. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even though there was... I had my relationship I was in. I had my mother-in-law come down from Top End We couldn't speak directly because it's an avoidance thing, you know.
Yes.
But
Same
through
with me.
through
Same
her
with me.
daughter,
Yeah,
who was
yeah.
my partner at the time, she's especially interested in doing some weaving with grasses.
Yeah.
And so we drove around the lake to have a bit of a look, and she seemed to spot a sedge and said, "Oh, that looks all right." But then she said through her daughter, I can't get it. It's not my country."
Mm.
So I went out and got it, and I cut it for her.
Mm.
That was all right.
Mm.
And I told Uncle Banjo that story, and he just said, "Oh, it's beautiful to hear. That is beautiful to hear." He said, "Those old people have got that respect,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
even though she is from top end and bottom end, you know.
Yeah.
Even though there might not be any Indigenous people there, spirits are still there, you know."
Yes. Of course
And
they are.
she observed that thing. So that was wonderful to see that, you know.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story. Shall we move on, Neil? You're recognised as one of Australia's foremost songwriters by APRA Awards in 1995 by winning the Song of the Year with My Island Home. What did that mean to you, getting that award?
Oh, it was, I guess, I'm not one for awards, I'll say that.
Yeah.
But that one is peer voted. It's voted for by the members of APRA, who are all composers, songwriters.
Yep.
So it was nice to get that recognition, you know. Even though it happened because of the success of Christine Anu's version of the song,
Yeah.
which broke into the mainstream, and she had the machine behind her, the big record label and management, promotion, all the rest of it.
Yep.
Whereas the Warumpi Band had recorded it and released it as a single in 1987, it didn't have the same impact, but it was an
Yep.
immediate hit in all Indigenous communities,
Yep.
right out as far as Tahiti, you know.
Wow.
You know.
Incredible.
So that it was validated by the mainstream industry was you know, it was gratifying to get some kind of mainstream recognition for it. Yeah, but
Yeah.
in a way, I felt the Warumpi Band's version
Was better.
should have been not better. I wouldn't say that. I just think it should. We would release it first. It's like a lot of things. We were the first at a lot of things. We were the first to release a commercial rock pop single in an Indigenous language. You know.
That's right.
So we're, you know, it's great to see that since then there's a lot of artists now who are recording and releasing songs in their own language.
Yeah, it's beautiful to hear. It really is. So we'll move on again. You've published 2 books, one of lyrics and one of short stories.
Also, I did a poetry book with
Okay.
Charles Darwin University Press
Yes.
back in the late 90s. A book called One Man Tribe, which is out of print now.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I went to the library and had a look. Couldn't find any
Couldn't
books. So this long form writing, why is that important to you?
Well, at the time, I was still struggling musically to get enough money just from doing shows, and I was living in Sydney.
Yeah.
And I'd always written. I'd started writing poems the same time as I did songs, kind of, you know,
Okay.
2 aspects of the one coin, really. But I hadn't written. I was doing some prose things, and I showed them to a writer that I was friends with who lived in Balmain, and he said, "Oh, this." They were called Hotter Headline at the Hotter and Stoughton they were at the time, and they had a New Zealand guy who was their editor, and he was very interested in publishing Australian stuff in inverted commas.
Yeah.
And he took my short stories, whatever you call them, to him, and he liked it. And he said, any chance you could expand on these things and make a book out of it? I said, well, yeah, I could, yeah. Well, the thing was they were going to give me an advance to write, so you beauty, you know, what better motivation?
Yeah.
Because it saved me trying to scratch around and get odd jobs, you know.
Yeah.
So I probably wrote the first draft in, I don't know, 92 or something. I was living in Annandale in Sydney, and probably wrote it in 5-6 months. And then they had an editor to work with me and did some rewriting in 3 months. And I went up to Varuna and Katoomba, and I really enjoyed it, you know. And then they published it, you know.
Wow.
And then the publishers changed. I think they got taken over by someone else, and they became a hot headline. By that stage, I'd moved to Melbourne in '94, and it might have been I ended up getting the rights back and 1,000 books that they hadn't sold.
Right.
So I ended up selling those, and then it was out of print. But then a friend in Byron Bay kindly stumped up the money to get it reprinted with a different cover.
Yep.
Which happened. But you know, I mean, I look at it now and I wonder how the hell I wrote it. I was sort of pretty brash and perhaps bold and overly confident or something. But I'm amazed that it seems like another lifetime when I see it now. But it is. I hate using that phrase. It's such a cliche. It is what it is.
Oh yeah, that one.
But it gives an insight into the covers a period from the late 70s to the end of the 80s, really.
Okay, so this is the poetry.
No, this is the Sing for Me Countryman, the autobiographical novel.
Right.
With names changed. Yeah.
Can you get a copy of it anywhere?
Well, I've got a couple in my car. That's
you might lend me one.
I've got a few left that I've been selling at gigs. That's all.
Okay, maybe I'll buy one.
Yeah. And the poetry book was just a collection of stuff I'd written from the late 70s through to late 90s, and that is out of print.
Yep.
I don't know whether I'll get it pre-published or not. And the lyrics was something I did with One Day Hill publishers, who are now defunct. But the trouble with the lyrics book is that it immediately becomes out of date once you've done subsequent albums. So.
Okay. Yeah.
But,
sure.
I've sold out of copies that I brought with me on this run, but I've still got some back at home.
Okay, I will buy one off you.
Which one?
any of your books.
Okay. Well, I've got one.
Because you can't find them anywhere.
No, that's it. You can't. But most libraries should have a copy of Sing for Me Countryman, at least the first edition.
Okay.
Because it was on that library register thing.
Okay, I'll ask the library.
But yeah, they do walk, I hear.
Yeah.
People have had them and loaned them to people and they never see them again.
Yeah. And
often I get wild-eyed people with their hair all awry, turning up at gigs with a dog-eared, dusty, thumb-eaten copy, wanting me to sign it. And I say, I'm not responsible for anything that happens to you, and they're saying, we just drove you across the desert to see you, I said, what?
You get all sorts, mate.
I guess that book was influenced a bit by Kerouac's On the Road and other kinds of, other kinds of writing that I'd read in the 70s.
Yeah.
And I was sort of driven by the need to be brutally honest as much as I could, but still not telling everything to protect the innocent and the guilty, but enough there for people to know what was going on.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. And so, excuse me, we were talking yesterday and you were telling me that you have been writing a memoir.
I do have another manuscript on the go, yes, that I did a lot of work on during COVID lockdown because I had time to. I ended up writing too much. And then I was told, had an appraisal of it, I was told it was too long, had to cut it down. I tried to cut it down.
Yep.
And it's sitting with a small publisher at the moment.
Great.
I'm waiting on their feedback. But
awesome.
Hopefully that might go somewhere. I mean, otherwise I could look at publishing it myself, but then it's just vanity press and doesn't really get any respect or reviews anywhere.
Yeah, right. Sure.
I can't really say more than that at the moment. But it's a proper memoir. It names names and things and
warts and all.
Yeah. Fair bit, but
as honest as you can be about yourself.
Yeah, as much as I can be. It deals with a lot of things that happened to me in Sydney and my time in Sydney, and then from there on, and deals with my returning to country and those kinds of things. A lot of stuff about the walks I had cut out because it was just too long.
Yep.
But a little bit about them, but not. I sort of see that could be another book, is just doing the whole walk thing.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
At the moment, I'm touring and I'm gigging and I'm sort of playing songs and I'm getting ideas for songs because when you're playing them, you sort of it stimulates that side of things. So
Awesome.
I'll be looking to maybe record another album later in the year if I can.
Wow, fantastic.
I think I've got one more album in me. I say that every time. But yeah, it's been well, the last ones they were released in 2019, so it's getting on. You know, I've generally released something every 3-4 years, maybe 5 years.
Yes.
But yeah, so
I tried to have a look at your catalogue, and how many solo albums have you done? Is it 9?
well, it depends on if you include compilations and
Yeah,
live things and stuff. But
sure.
as far as original albums go, I'm just trying to count. Karma Crystal Clear, These Hands, Dust, Wandering Kind, Going the Distance, Overnighter, Witness, Bring Thunder and Rain, Blood and Longing, and then there's Jungle. There's 10 already original
Yes.
albums,
Yes.
and then there's a few compilations,
Yes.
best of type things, and a live album that's out of print that I did with Shane Howard, just
Yep.
the two of us, and yeah, and I've got another compilation on the go called Hindsight now, but I did release one, Sing the Song, I think it was called, of the ABC a few years back, and prior to that I had another one when I was with Shock Records.
Yep.
So, you know, there's at least 10
Yep.
originals there, plus there's the 3 Warranty Band albums, so there's
Yep. Of course.
13 albums of original songs.
Yep. Amazing, incredible to be able to produce that amount of work in that amount of time, Neil.
Well, look, it's,
Really?
yeah,
It is.
I don't know, I don't think I'm overly prolific.
Sure.
I'm just hope that, you know, just trying to, it's better to release, you know, quality.
Absolutely.
But as a songwriter, you get all these songs on the shelf, and the only way to clear them is to record them and release them somehow. So then you can feel that you're free again to maybe something new to come in, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, right. So you're on tour in the north of Australia, right?
Yeah.
Up in Northern Territory. I saw you doing some dates.
Yep.
And up at Atherton and down here in Cairns tomorrow night. So with when you've got that much work to draw from, how do you put a set list together to do a concert now?
Well, because I'm solo, that in a way dictates the kind of songs I can do well in a solo format.
Okay, yeah.
But then you balance that with the need to put in some tunes there that people know, the ones that have got a bit of traction. So that means at least a couple of Warranty Band songs,
Yeah, sure.
and my best known solo songs.
Yeah.
But I tend to do the songs that I know I can perform well in a solo mode. You don't have a band to kind of have that impact that you can cover more other songs that are rockier, for example, or whatever. But
Yep.
so I've had a set, but perhaps at least half of it is pretty set, but then I vary the other half of it.
Okay.
In terms of
What's
what I
going
do,
on.
and it depends also where I am playing, and if I've got any songs that might be relevant to that area or that
Yeah.
audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the fact that I've had Trudy Fatnana performing with me since Mackay, and she's been singing about black burning and stuff, and that's her
Yeah.
part of her heritage. She's also got Indigenous heritage as well from the Cairns area.
Yeah.
That's informed some of the songs that I've wanted to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it really.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming and having a yarn today, Neil. It's been awesome talking to you, mate.
Right, yeah, I enjoyed it. When's this going to air?
Well, we can put it up tonight.
You're
Oh, well.
doing it.
I'll send you a copy and you put one on your YouTube channel.
I don't know how to do that.
Well, you must have a technical person behind
I
it.
do. I've got a web person down in Sydney that does that for me.
All right, I'll send a copy to them, and as quick as we can get it moving, mate.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, mate.
Thanks, Daniel.
Okay, cool. Cheers, mate.